Let us begin with the arms of government. This is a very important topic in government. It appears in your exams every single year. By the end of this lesson, you will understand the composition, functions, and powers of the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, the relationships between them, and how to answer exam questions. Take your notes. Let us go. First, let me explain the executive. The executive is the arm of government responsible for implementing and enforcing laws. It is also called the government or the administration. In Nigeria, the executive includes the president, the vice president, ministers, and government agencies. The president is the head of state and head of government. The executive is responsible for running the country day to day. The executive has several functions. The first function is implementation of laws. The executive takes the laws passed by the legislature and puts them into effect. Government ministries and agencies carry out the laws. Without implementation, laws are just words on paper. The second function is foreign policy. The executive represents the country in international affairs. The president meets with other leaders. The foreign ministry conducts diplomacy. The executive negotiates treaties, but the legislature must ratify them. The third function is defense. The executive is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The president can deploy troops, but a declaration of war may require legislative approval. The fourth function is law enforcement. The police and other law enforcement agencies are part of the executive. They arrest lawbreakers and maintain order. The fifth function is appointment. The executive appoints ministers, judges, ambassadors, and other officials. Some appointments require legislative confirmation. The sixth function is budget preparation. The executive prepares the national budget and submits it to the legislature for approval. The seventh function is issuing executive orders. The president can issue orders that have the force of law without going through the legislature. These orders must be consistent with existing laws. The eighth function is granting pardons. The president can pardon people convicted of crimes. This is called executive clemency. In Nigeria, the executive has specific powers under the 1999 Constitution. The president is directly elected by the people. The president serves a term of 4 years. The president can be re-elected once. The president appoints ministers, but the ministers must be confirmed by the Senate. The president can declare a state of emergency, but this must be approved by the National Assembly. The president can veto bills passed by the National Assembly. The National Assembly can override the veto with a 2/3 majority. Now let me explain the legislature. The legislature is the arm of government that makes laws. It is also called the Parliament or National Assembly. In Nigeria, the legislature is called the National Assembly. It has 2 chambers. The Senate is the upper chamber. The House of Representatives is the lower chamber. This is called a bicameral legislature. The Senate has 109 members. Each state has 3 senators. The Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, has 1 senator. The House of Representatives has 360 members. They are elected from single-member constituencies. The functions of the legislature include lawmaking. This is the primary function. The legislature debates proposed laws, amends them, and votes on them. When a law is passed, it is called an act of the National Assembly. The second function is representation. Legislators represent the people who elected them. They bring the concerns of their constituents to the legislature. They speak on behalf of the people. The third function is oversight. The legislature monitors the executive to ensure it is implementing laws correctly. Legislators ask questions of ministers. They conduct investigations. They can summon officials to testify. The fourth function is approval of budgets. The legislature must approve the government's budget. Without this approval, the government cannot spend money. The fifth function is ratification of appointments. The Senate must confirm the president's appointments to key positions like ministers, ambassadors, and certain agency heads. The sixth function is impeachment. The legislature can remove the president or other high officials for misconduct. This is called impeachment. The House of Representatives brings the charges. The Senate conducts the trial. The seventh function is amending the Constitution. The legislature can change the Constitution, but this requires a 2/3 majority in both chambers and approval by 2/3 of the state houses of assembly. The eighth function is oversight of foreign policy. The Senate ratifies treaties and declarations of war. The ninth function is providing a forum for debate. The legislature is where national issues are discussed. The public can see what their leaders are thinking. The 10th function is representation of diversity. Different regions, ethnic groups, and social classes have a voice in the legislature. Now let me explain the judiciary. The judiciary is the arm of government that interprets laws and administers justice. It is also called the court system. In Nigeria, the judiciary includes the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, the Federal High Court, the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, state high courts, Sharia courts, and customary courts. The Supreme Court is the highest court. Its decisions are final and binding on all other courts. The functions of the judiciary include interpretation of laws. When there is a dispute about what a law means, the courts decide. Their interpretation is binding. The second function is dispute resolution. Courts settle disputes between individuals and the government, and between different levels of government. The third function is judicial review. Courts can declare laws unconstitutional. If a law violates the Constitution, the courts can strike it down. This is a very important power. It allows the judiciary to check the legislature and the executive. The fourth function is protection of rights. Courts protect the fundamental rights of citizens. If the government violates someone's rights, the victim can go to court. The court can order the government to stop. The fifth function is interpretation of the Constitution. The courts, especially the Supreme Court, interpret the meaning of the Constitution. Their interpretations become part of constitutional law. The sixth function is hearing appeals. Lower courts make decisions. Losing parties can appeal to higher courts. The appeal courts review the decisions of lower courts for errors. The seventh function is advising the government. In some countries, the highest court can advise the government on legal questions. In Nigeria, the Supreme Court has advisory jurisdiction in certain cases. The eighth function is administration of justice. Courts conduct trials, hear evidence, and impose sentences on those found guilty. The ninth function is making case law. When courts decide cases, their decisions become precedents. Future courts follow these precedents. This body of decisions is called case law or common law. Now let me explain the relationship between the three arms of government. The three arms are separate but interdependent. The legislature makes the laws. The executive implements them. The judiciary interprets them. The Constitution provides for separation of powers and checks and balances. The legislature checks the executive by approving budgets, ratifying appointments, conducting oversight, and impeaching. The executive checks the legislature by vetoing bills. The judiciary checks both by declaring laws and actions unconstitutional. The relationship is not always smooth. There can be conflict between the arms. The executive may refuse to implement a law. The legislature may refuse to confirm appointments. The courts may strike down popular laws. But these conflicts are normal in a democracy. They ensure that no arm becomes too powerful. The Constitution provides mechanisms to resolve conflicts. The courts are the final arbiters. Now let me compare the presidential and parliamentary systems. In a presidential system like Nigeria, the executive and legislature are separate. The president is not a member of the legislature. The president is elected directly by the people. The president serves a fixed term. The legislature cannot remove the president except by impeachment. The president cannot dissolve the legislature. In a parliamentary system like the United Kingdom, the executive and legislature are fused. The Prime Minister is a member of the legislature. The Prime Minister is chosen by the legislature. The Prime Minister serves as long as they have the confidence of the legislature. The legislature can remove the Prime Minister by a vote of no confidence. The Prime Minister can dissolve the legislature and call new elections. Each system has advantages and disadvantages. The presidential system provides stability. The president serves a fixed term. There is less uncertainty. The parliamentary system is more responsive. If the government fails, it can be removed quickly. Nigeria chose the presidential system in 1979. It has maintained that system in the 1999 Constitution. A common exam question asks you to describe the composition and functions of the executive. Here is a sample answer. The executive in Nigeria includes the president, vice president, ministers, and government agencies. The functions of the executive include implementation of laws, foreign policy, defense, law enforcement, appointment of officials, budget preparation, issuing executive orders, and granting pardons. The president is the head of the executive and is directly elected for a 4-year term. Another exam question asks you to explain the functions of the legislature. Here is your answer. The functions of the legislature include lawmaking, representation of the people, oversight of the executive, approval of the budget, ratification of appointments, impeachment of officials, amending the constitution, ratifying treaties, providing a forum for debate, and representing diversity. In Nigeria, the National Assembly has two chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Another exam question asks you to discuss the functions of the judiciary. Here is your answer. The functions of the judiciary include interpretation of laws, dispute resolution, judicial review, protection of rights, interpretation of the Constitution, hearing appeals, administration of justice, and making case law. In Nigeria, the Supreme Court is the highest court. Its decisions are final and binding. Another exam question asks you to explain the relationship between the three arms of government. Here is your answer. The three arms are separate but interdependent. The legislature makes laws. The executive implements laws. The judiciary interprets laws. Checks and balances ensure that no arm becomes too powerful. The legislature checks the executive through oversight and impeachment. The executive checks the legislature through veto power. The judiciary checks both through judicial review. Here is what you need to take away. The executive implements laws. Its functions include implementation, foreign policy, defense, and appointment. The legislature makes laws. Its functions include lawmaking, representation, oversight, and budget approval. The judiciary interprets laws. Its functions include interpretation, dispute resolution, judicial review, and protection of rights. The three arms work together through separation of powers and checks and balances. Understanding the arms of government is essential for understanding how Nigeria is governed. Practice these concepts. When you have them down, move to topic 6.